everyone! Today I will tell you about the film The King. Enjoy watching! The film is based on real events. The beginning of the 15th century. The field is strewn with bodies after a clash between the Scots and the English. Knight Percy Hotspur finishes off a wounded Scottish warrior. Later, he dines at the same table with King Henry IV, an unkempt drunk. Hotspur is indignant that the king does not ransom his brother from captivity by the Welsh. For this reason, he is not going to share with the captured Scottish prisoners. But he only calls his brother a rebel and a traitor. Young Hotspur allows himself to express himself very harshly towards my lord, to which the king replies that he will simply hang the youth if he does not get his hands on the Scots. Percy and his father get up from the table and leave. But the son of the king himself, Prince of Wales Henry, nicknamed Hal, is now sleeping off his drinking bout with dirty feet. His older friend, John Falstaff, was wounded, and Hal patches him up with hot metal. Their walk through the slums is interrupted by an unknown person from the royal palace. Having secluded himself with the prince, he informs that his highness is ill and asks his son to come to him. Hal refuses, and instead drinks with the bearded man until he drops in a tavern. The next day, the prince wakes up in the company of a girl, whom Falstaff politely sends away, and asks Hal to visit his father anyway. Otherwise, he can be dragged by force, and even disinherited after the death of the king. The prince comes to the palace. All the lords greet him standing. Henry IV says that he does not have much time left, and they need to choose an heir. Although Henry is the eldest son, he will certainly not become king. The crown will go to his younger brother Thomas. It is he who will lead the army against the traitor Percy Hotspur. Having thought everything over, Hal comes to the camp to his younger brother. The young drunkard challenges Percy to a one-on-one fight. This will replace the battle between the armies. Hal does not consider Hotspur's people enemies. And Thomas is a bad warrior. Only Hotspur rode up to the prince's army. He can't wait to fight Henry. The younger brother does not like that he is being pushed into the background. Hal suggests that the rebel wait a little until his father dies, and then there will be no feud. However, Percy is thirsty for blood. The visors are closed, the duel has begun. Hal wields his sword with a sweeping motion, and then gets closer and knocks down his opponent. It is difficult to inflict damage through armor with fists, and the knights again took up their swords. Percy knocked the sword out of Hal's hands, but he grabbed a dagger and, getting closer, stabbed the leader of the rebels. Despite the victory, Thomas was disappointed because this was supposed to be his battle. This was the first murder committed by Hal, and to drown out the nasty feeling, he got very drunk. Falstaff consoles him as best he can. Sometime later, the drunken prince is summoned to the palace again. His father is dying. According to the messenger, Hal's hostility towards his tyrant father is a sign that he will be a good king for England. But Thomas, it turns out, was upset after the incident with the rebels and went to war with Wales, where he died. Drunk Henry calls his father a monster and bursts into the dying king's room. He pulls the blanket off the old man covered in ulcers. Henry IV's last words were, "What have I done?" All present bowed before the new king. Henry V Falstaff overslept everything, and now he is asked to leave the property of the King of England. Hal undergoes the coronation ceremony. In the evening, at a feast, Henry V receives gifts from other European kings. He immediately gives the cup to his sister Philippa, Queen of Sweden. He gives the mechanical toy from Constantinople to his cousin Cambridge. But a children's ball arrived from the Dauphin, son of the King of France. Hal kept this mocking gift for himself. William Gascoigne, the Chief Justice, says that the insult must be answered. But the young king is calm. He understands that he must first end the civil strife within the country. All his father's enemies will be forgiven, and she writes letters to them personally. He also tells his sister that he wants to end the chaos in the country. She warns him that the nobles will always protect their interests. The Archbishop questions the legitimacy of Charles VI of France's tenure on the throne. Allegedly, Henry can lay claim to it, that is, take it by force. France has always been Henry IV's goal, and then it will be possible to move on to Jerusalem. But the young king is not going to ruin entire countries. He is different. Gascoigne praises Henry's firmness, but here's the thing. France is mocking England, and the people don't like it. The innkeeper mocks Falstaff, saying that his drinking buddy no longer needs him. At this time, Henry has come to the dungeon to talk to the assassin sent to him by Charles, the King of France. But even now, Hal is in no hurry to start a war. The Chief Justice assures him that not only harmony is important in government, but also strength. The people of England expect this from him. Henry writes a letter to Charles and suggests that they stop flirting. If they want war with England, they should send an army. He orders a cannonball to be placed in the chest where the ball was and sent back. An envoy from the King of France comes to Cambridge. The French invite him to a meeting about his brother. He was told that Charles had not sent any assassin, but the judge is sure that this is a lie. Lord Grey immediately expresses concern that a drunkard from the slums will not make a good ruler, and Cambridge doubts the sharpness of his mind. Judge Gascoigne convinces the young king that it is important to make decisions. Difficult decisions, but ones that can unite the country. And Henry declares war on France. He would like to entrust Lord Grey and Cambridge with informing the enemy about this, but unfortunately they will be busy. Tomorrow their heads will be cut off. The king watches the execution of the conspirators from the front row. In the tavern, they save on lighting, so Falstaff did not immediately notice Hull, who came to take him to the palace. He did not immediately decide, but eventually agreed on the condition that his high-born friend would pay all his debts. Henry chose him as the head of the military company. He has extensive experience in military affairs and has no illusions about war. After collecting supplies, the huge English fleet heads for the shores of France. There is no one left in the coastal village when the troops land. The English set up camp and built trebuchets. At night, the shelling of the nearby besieged castle with fire shells began. This action continues day after day. However, the siege cannot last for months, otherwise the English will begin to die of hunger and disease. They will have to storm it, sacrificing soldiers. But this was not necessary. The French surrendered. Many of them starved and died of disease. Women and children were released, the men were taken prisoner. A garrison was set up in the captured castle. The king is informed that the Dauphin Louis himself is asking for an audience with him. But there is a suspicion that this is just a trick to delay the advance of the English. The French prince arrived at the camp at night. He smiles, drinks wine, and tells what awaits Henry on French soil. Namely, bloodletting and burial under a very small tree, just like him, and guesses how big the Englishman's penis is. Henry did not respond to the insult and left, and on the street he ordered an immediate advance. The English army is moving inland. The archbishop has settled in most comfortably. At a halt, 3 boys went to collect brushwood. The French stabbed one, killed the second with a crossbow, and Louis caught the third and asked him to give something to Henry. The boy returned to the camp with the severed head of his comrade. The angry king orders that the guard be doubled at night and that all the prisoners be executed, and the corpses be impaled on stakes by the river. But Falstaff refuses to arrange a mass execution, which angers Hell even more. By evening, the seasoned warrior has drunk heavily. Having reached the hill, the king sends a rider to find out what is hidden behind it. Behind the hill, he sees the camp of a huge French army. There are more French, and they have a better position. But they cannot wait, since their army will only grow stronger over time. The English are exhausted. Many have fallen ill. Lord Dorset suggests retreating, so they will at least preserve the army. However, according to Falstaff, they can still win. The French have powerful cavalry with heavy knights in the vanguard. The terrain here is damp. It will also rain at night, and they will simply get stuck in the mud. But the English must attack without armor and horses. In addition, English archers are much stronger than French crossbowmen. It really did rain at night. In the morning, Falstaff puts on heavy armor. A small detachment of knights is needed to draw the Frenchmen into battle, and he will be among them. The main thing is that the king does not enter the battle too early, regardless of what happens to this detachment. Hall decides to do it his way again, and arrives alone at the French camp. The Dauphin mocks again, calling the English language simple and ugly, and is indignant that Henry did not surrender earlier. But that is not why he is here. He challenges Louis to a duel, so as not to spill rivers of Christian blood. Whoever wins will rule France after the death of Charles. But the Dauphin is not satisfied with this option. He is confident in the victory of his army. Henry returned to his army and gives him an inspiring speech. Falstaff commands a detachment of knights. The warriors in heavy armor slowly went into the attack up the slope. The French cavalry also slowly moved forward. It was covered by a rain of English arrows. In a panic, the French galloped forward and crashed into the English at full speed. A brutal massacre in the mud began. Faces are crushed and bones are broken along with the armor. Swords and daggers are thrust into unprotected places. Falstaff was stunned by a blow to the head. He was crushed. It was hard to breathe. It was impossible to get out of this pile of bodies. The battle slowed down. Louis commanded the remaining cavalry to attack. They were also fired upon. Then the English infantry rushed into the attack with all their might. Henry wields a light one-handed axe. Then the dagger came into play. It was difficult for the clumsy knights to hit it. In the midst of the battle, it began to rain again. The English are slaughtering and drowning the exhausted French in the mud. The Dauphin rode up slowly. Now he is ready to fight the tired Henry. But the trouble is, Louis in his heavy armor cannot even stand on his own 2 feet. His legs are moving apart. He is not able to fight. The king did not even strain himself and gave the opportunity to stab this laughingstock to 4 of his fighters. The English won a crushing victory at Agincourt. All the swords are picked up from the battlefield. Among the dead, Henry finds Falstaff. Afterwards, he gives the order to kill all the prisoners. Henry gets to the King of France, Charles VI the Mad. He is ready to capitulate and does not even ask for anything in return. But he offers to take his daughter Catherine as a wife. Saddened by the death of his friend, Henry sails to his homeland. In England, a jubilant crowd gathered at the palace, and the young king establishes relations with the future queen. According to Catherine, an artificial union like this will not last long. She also wonders why this war was fought. The girl declares that there was no killer, as well as no plan to kill Henry. Her father only laughed when he learned about the accusation, and he, due to his madness, is always frank. And her brother Louis was too stupid to organize something like that. But there was also the ball, and in general, his power is illegitimate. Well, so is Henry himself, the son of the usurper. It is time to have a frank talk with the chief judge, William Gascoigne. The king is interested in his family and the amount of land he owns. It is also interesting to know how much land Gascoigne planned to squeeze out for himself in conquered France. And for some reason, the judge too vaguely remembers how the assassin came to him. William gets confused in his testimony and eventually gives in. All this time, he manipulated the young king and lied to him. But Henry wanted peace, and peace is supposedly forged by victories. Look, and the people under the windows are happy, rejoicing. William kneels before the king, and without thinking twice, he pierces his head with a dagger. Henry approaches Katrina, takes her hands, and asks her to promise to always tell him only the truth.